So we'll be asking the questions in light of Online Safety Day, Safer Internet, which is... So I'd just like to start off by asking, what is online safety to you? What do you think?
Well, basically, when you're online, effectively you're in public. And just as when you're in public, you'd take care of yourself, you have to be aware of threats such as buses and other people potentially. Obviously, it's nice to be out and about, so you can interact with people, you can do things in public, but similarly, when you're online, you can have a great time. But you need to be cognizant of the fact that you are in public, in effect.
So, what do you think could be the consequences of being in a public space?
One of the problems is people don't perceive themselves as being in public. So, for example, if you're sitting at home, you're in your bedroom, you've got your laptop, you're on your duvet, there's a nice smell of cooking coming up the stairs, and you're feeling relaxed and your guard is down. And actually, you do need to keep your guard up. It shouldn't mean you have to be paranoid, worried all the time, or stressed, but you just need to be cautious. And so basically online safety is about making sure that no harm comes to you, that people don't put you in a position where you feel stressed, worried, afraid, or pressurized by other people, where you protect yourself. And one of my key messages for anybody listening to this is one of the greatest dangers to you on the internet is you. When you do something inadvertently and without realising what the consequences might be.
Right, because we can feel when we are online that we are anonymous, and some people may take that take that quite far, and they think that they are untouchable, and they don't think as much about the consequences as they would in real life.
Yes, and that's possibly because they don't know how the internet works. Effectively, every time you log on and you do something on the net, you leave a trail of breadcrumbs, because the internet data packets which go from them to you or vice versa are all labelled with the sender's address, destination address. And so every single piece of data going over the internet, it can say where it's come from and where it's going to. And with resources, anybody can find that out. In fact, within the UK, all internet service providers, for example, might be BT for many people in the UK, who provide their broadband, or Virgin, other suppliers are available. Whoever is supplying your broadband at home and has to, by law, keep a record of your web traffic, for example, or your internet traffic. So there is always, somebody can always find out what you've done and where you've been. But we feel anonymous because we don't put our names to it immediately.
So if a student didn't feel safe online, what actions might they take?
If there's a particular incident which occurs or a particular situation, then you report it. It's very easy. Reporting it sounds quite serious, but it's as simple as telling a trusted adult. And there are mechanisms, for example, the reporting button on various sites, etc. And we have a reporting button on Firefly in school. And reporting it can often just make the problem go away, because it's shining a light on some of the unpleasant people on the internet is actually the last thing they want. So that can be, the other thing is, don't be baited. It's very easy to somebody comes at you, you can block them. So just block people whose company for example, if you're in a you're on a parade ground, for example, here, and you see somebody who is unpleasant to you for whatever reason, and that doesn't happen very often in Gresham's, but it does in public, it can do. You see some strangely behaved person coming towards you in the bus station or the railway station, you think, I think I'll stay away from them. And actually, you have to just take the same kind of steps you would in real life. It's not very different. So blocking, reporting, and certainly don't respond to a troll. If somebody's baiting you and trying to get a rise out of you, basically just ignore them, block them, and and that's going to drive them mad. Actually, it's going to drive them more mad than if you, because that's what they want. So if you just ignore them, they're fulminating at home, trying to get to contact the person they were trying to get a rise out of, and their blood pressure is probably going through the roof. And that's one way of irritating them.
And obviously, with the idea of the breadcrumbs, your digital footprint can follow you into further life.
Yes.
So it can bite you very, very hard in the future.
Yes, I mean, this is something, again, as I say, the greatest danger to you is you. And that goes for adults too. So any parents who might be listening to this might wish to consider that. Your digital footprint is all the things you've ever done online, comments you left, maybe when you were young and you were cross at somebody and you did some injudicious, you did something injudicious online. There'd be a record somewhere, and this has bitten people quite badly. For example, PewDiePie, who's one of the biggest YouTube hits, he got sacked by Disney for some remarks he made which were perceived to be anti-Semitic. A number of high-profile celebrities have come a cropper. There was somebody on I'm a Celebrity, who's obviously being paid many tens of thousands of pounds to be on I'm a Celebrity in Australia. Made some comments which were quite horribly misogynist, and he found himself on the next plane back to the UK. It's very, the consequences will not just be felt maybe immediately, but in the future. And there are many examples where, when people were younger, they made a comment which has come back, and then they were perceived to be no longer suitable for the job for which they were applying. Toby Young, well-known columnist, commentator on TV, highly articulate, highly opinionated. He has very strong views, which many people find unpalatable. He was going to be made the head of the office for students. So basically, without having an oversight role over the student sector, university sector in the UK, and some comments he'd made online appeared to have been overlooked when he was initially tapped up for this job. When they emerged, he had to resign and not take up the post.
Who has access to your digital footprint?
It depends. There are aspects of it to which you don't actually have access without a court order or without, the under the hood workings of the internet. Technicians, companies who provide internet services will have access to that, and they can be asked to provide it by the police, for example. But there's an awful lot of more public, on the surface data. For example, your profile, anything in your profile, your holiday pictures. Oh, look, they're in Cyprus. Let's pop round and help ourselves. If you're telling people that you're on holiday in real time, then somebody may know that you're not at home, and it's those kind of obvious things which we want to share good news with our friends. So what you should do is make sure you're only sharing it with your friends, with this caveat. It has happened in the past that two people have been very much an item, very much in love. They trust each other, and that degree of trust from having a relationship with another person is very important too. It enables you to share information, and there is a category of harm which people have come to, which through trusting somebody very close to them, turned out to be, possibly after they split up or just generally not that nice. Then there's been some high profile cases where people have let out seemingly innocuous information. It's being used against them. So you just need to be mindful. I think that's the key, is to be mindful of what you're doing, mindful of what you're saying, and mindful, if you say, oh, mum and dad have just gone to London for the weekend, and you think, right. You might find yourself inundated by 500 people who've decided to come and have a party at your house. This could happen.
So,
by the way, don't do that. It shouldn't, But what I'm saying is, information is power, and giving information to other people potentially gives them power over you.
You have a lot of responsibility when you're on the internet because of the amount of power that you have. there is just so much that you can do, and it's very hard to sometimes see that the potential consequences of your actions online, because you feel so taken out of the real world situation that some people they won't feel how this could be misread.
Well, yes, I mean there's a whole there's again, I mean particularly the misreading thing is, for example, when we're talking now, and I'm looking at you two, and there's a whole lot of communication which is going on which is non-verbal.
Right.
So which, it's not solely the words, it's the tone of voice, it's the context, it's the other information being exchanged. If you put down some words in, just plain characters on the screen, there's no context, there's no necessarily, unless it's part of a longer conversation, there's no, it's actually quite a limited form of communication, and actually you need to be careful that what would be the worst construction somebody could place on your words, because politicians have this done to them all the time. They will say something and they mean one thing, and very often they do mean what they say, but whether it's true or not, but it can be misused and taken out of context by somebody else and said, you said this, and there's no point saying you didn't. It's just, they always say, oh, my words were taken out of context. That's the classic excuse. But for us as, for you as young people using the internet, you need to be mindful of those kind of aspects of communication online. It is imperfect, and so you can miscommunicate.
And what do you feel is the most important bit of advice for students to stay safe online when they are communicating with other people?
Well, I think the most important piece of advice is, before you even go online, is actually have a strong password, use a password manager. An extraordinary number of people use the name of their pet or their football team or 1 2 3 4 5 or things like this, and we all laugh and you think, wow, how stupid is that? But actually people do. There's a thing called social engineering. So you strike up a chat with somebody in a cafe, and they're asking you, and they ask about your pets and your mother's maiden name or whatever, and then what's slightly exaggerating on the latter, but they get some personal information, and many people, in order to remember their password, use some information that's really familiar. My daughter's name, my aunt's dog, whatever. And so don't do that. Have a good password, because if somebody can log on to your accounts, they can impersonate you, they can commit fraud, they can be rude to somebody, and you have no comeback. You can't prove, it's very hard to prove, that you didn't send it. So before you ever get there, strong passwords, two-factor authentication.
What do you think should be covered in the school curriculum about online safety?
Well, I think all the things I'm discussing, I think the thing to do is it has to be relevant to young people's experience, and it can't be, and I think you digital leaders do a great job, because it has to come from people like people like you have to tell people like you, because you have the knowledge and you can share it with others. It'll be thought of as more credible and relevant. If somebody of my age, who was born in the late 1400s, starts to talk about it, and I grew up with quill, pen and parchment and came to the internet late, it seems possibly less credible. I mean, I do know about this stuff, but I think if you want to engage with people, it has to be relevant. I also think, so the relevance is key. I think all the things I've just been speaking about, and I think doing it in smaller groups. Don't lecture people, because there's a kind of an optimum size of group where everybody can contribute, and their contribution should be dealt with respectfully, so that there's a ground rules in the group that it's debating or discussing, rather than people taking hostile positions. And then then just cover contemporary issues. I mean, unfortunately, many of the online safety issues are in the press weekly. And I think a good way to approach it would be to take a couple of news stories that's happening, the news stories that happened over there, and just sort of say, what did they do wrong?
Yeah.
I mean, I did give a talk. There's a famous case for the Australian cricket captain, where he's given up cricket. And he had to give up cricket because of a text exchange he had, which was subsequently published. And he was completely out of order. He misread the situation and then did some very stupid things. And when this came to light, he's actually not even. It's not just that he got dropped as captain. He's left cricket entirely, which for somebody of his age is quite a blow. But the reason I bring that up is it's something you can hook onto. People, it's much more immediate if you can see, rather than in the abstract, where once people would discuss stranger danger, and that is a danger online. But I think it's much more impactful to talk about relevant contemporary, and sadly, there continue to be incidents. I think you may disagree, but I think that's a good approach.
I agree with what you're saying. And finally,
yes.
What do you feel that the school could do to potentially increase the safety of the students?
Well, it already does a lot, both of its own volition, by promoting the Digital Leaders campaign, by involving the National Online Safety materials and resources, which are many of them available to parents as well. They're all high quality things. We also have an obligation, but we would do it anyway, is to filter and monitor internet traffic. But I think education is the most important thing. You cannot stop every accident, but if you can make people stop and think when they log on at home, they're all warm and they've got a cup of tea and they're having a nice time, and I'm just going to go online and chat, and just pause for thought, and think about that. I think it's really just inculcating a culture of, as with cars, young people, we allow them to drive cars, learn to drive cars, but you have to treat them with respect, otherwise they will turn around and bite you.
Yeah.
And I think the internet is a similar kind of thing. It's having a driving license is an immensely liberating thing, but you have to be a little bit careful. And similarly, the internet is the most complex and most fantastic invention humanity has ever made, created, designed, developed, and uses, which has a vast amount to offer, but you just need to be mindful.
Right.
So the important message is that you should be careful on any social media platform.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Social media, yes, if somebody is getting heated about something, if it's really unpleasant, just block them, report them. Certainly, if you don't want to engage with this, if it's making you feel uncomfortable, somebody said this to you in person, would you like it? No. So just ignore them. Ignoring these kind of people is quite effective, but certainly block and report.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us today, sir. Thank you for your answers.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And I think it's a tremendous programme you're doing. I think it's terrific work. So good luck with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.